And we're live. That's right. We are live over here, folks, at the Podcaster Nation. Welcome to this new project, this fantastic new podcast we're putting together. We are getting all kinds of response from folks, interest in this. People are wanting to jump in and join the movement. And I have a guy today, an incredible dude. I love his podcast. I've listened to several of his episodes. He's down to earth. He's very real and incredibly authentic. I'm really happy to have this guy with us today. I'm going to introduce him in just one second. Let me just real quick say thank you so much to everybody who has sent us messages, who has weighed in on the first few podcasts we've put out. You folks who have joined our group, you guys make all the difference. This is the podcast done by podcasters for podcasters about podcasters. This is us, folks. This is our world. This is what we do, and this is why we do it. So I love the fact we're building a community, and thank you very much for being here. Now, without any further ado, I don't want this guy to fall asleep listening to me drone on, but my guest today is Rasheed Myers, the host of Sparkin Conversation podcast. Rasheed, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Listen. I contacted you the other day, and I had a chance right when I contacted you to jump on live with a couple of my
Right.
different YouTube profiles and just kind of listen to some of the stuff you're talking about. You have a very interesting podcast. You cover a lot of interesting folks that have interesting stories,
Yep.
and you get very real with some of your topics. Tell everybody who's listening, who is Rasheed Myers? Where do you come from? What are you about? And why are you doing this?
Okay. Well, where I'm from a little town called East Orange, New Jersey. A lot of people may have heard of that place. It's a lot of really famous people that come from that small city in the north. And as far as like who I am as a person, I just like to say for the most part that I think to label myself would be just giving myself a disservice, right? I like to allow that impression to be upon the people that are in front of me that I meet and allow them to, pretty much assess what they think. Not that I take in what everybody says, because you got to believe what you need to believe about yourself, but it's always good when you're being your authentic you. And then whatever the way that people respond to that is just always a good thing, whether it's negative or positive, because you're who you are. So I like to say that when it comes in regard to myself. And the reason why I do the platform podcast, so to speak, is because I feel like in life there are a lot of things that go on with people that are very interesting, and they don't get a chance to tell a story. And in our community, therapy is taboo, right? Right. But the main thing about therapy is that you get to express the things that are inside of you and get them out. Now, yeah, a lot of times you have another person on the other end of that to help you decipher through that. Hopefully, with a way that you can understand it. But for the most part, so many people get therapy by releasing the things that's inside of them, getting what's in them up out of them is what I like to say. And Spartan Conversation is that platform, right? Because we have conversations on there. I don't really interview people. I actually talk with them because technically, to be honest, I can't relate to every scenario that my guests go through, but I can have empathy to it because of study and other experiences of other people who've gone through those things that my guests have gone through. So, yeah, that's what I like to say when it comes to the platform.
Nice, nice. I mentioned earlier, I was looking over some of your episodes. I caught, pieces of some of them. Listened, pretty intently to the one you had going on. You cover some serious topics. A lot of folks have podcasts where they cover a lot of topics, but they don't delve quite as deeply. I mean, the one that I tuned into first was, you were talking to, a man who had been sexually abused as a child, and I mean the whole nine
Right.
yards. And that, brother, I'm 5 minutes in, and I'm going, wow, this guy's telling this story. Like, it was blowing me away. And that's not the only podcast you have like that. How do you get like so in depth and so deep with your folks?
I would like to say, I guess, because it's more based on a conversation than it is an interview. And I think that's why, because a lot of times in interview style, I realize that depending on the topic, you'll have people that have questions geared towards that topic. And sometimes your question can be offensive to a person who quite want to tell a story, but they want to tell it in a way that it helps them, not more so where it's a devil advocate type scenario or this is what I heard. Because a lot of times the hosts of different programs, they like to really talk about themselves more about whatever the topic is, then they do allow their guests to be the lead in that, and you just kind of help them go through the conversation. So I think that's why I was able to get so many people to go so deep into their story with me, is because I do that, right? I don't ask them like questions about, like, for example, the guy that you watched, I never asked him certain questions about physically how did it feel. Did you feel like, I didn't get into that. What I wanted to really know about was emotionally, how did you deal with things and what were the signs? So that way, if any other person is watching this and they have children, whether they have their favorite brother-in-law, whatever it is that they have, and they allow their children to go off to these things, at least you would know that. And in my community, right, let's just put it to you like this. The guy that we talked about, whatever was happening to him is what happens, like he said, in middle class white community. It doesn't really happen in other races, right? That they really get together with other people and share their children, right? In a sexual manner. So then for me, as being a person of color, whenever a person gets on a platform and I'm able to have that conversation with them, these are things that I say all the time, how we too busy looking at the outside of people versus understanding who they are on the inside. Because a lot of people wouldn't expect to get that information from me, right?
Right.
Because it's not necessarily geared towards my audience, but the act itself is geared towards all races. It don't matter who you are. There's a child being molested right now in every scenario. The only difference is we don't have
Mm.
a person that was willing to talk about it from the depths that he was. You get what I'm saying? And be able to tell things that nobody wouldn't know unless you were in that circle. So that's just one. But you got to think about it. A lot of the people that I talk to, they lost loved ones and it was like children and it was their only child, right? They'll never be a grandparent. They'll never, get to go to certain graduations, or they'll never get to experience certain things. So they help other parents that are dealing with these things. But the fact that they're able to get their story out where the national news won't cover these things. So, my platform has been more of a blessing to people than it is about me, and what I feel like my future would be as far as being a podcaster and actually making a living off of it.
I mean, that's wow. That's something that I noticed when I was listening to you talk with your people. I love the way you said it, that you don't interview them, you just have the conversation with them. People who are listening to this primarily are other podcasters. That's our target right here. And what I
Yes,
hear a lot of other podcasters do is, they're so wrapped up with their list of questions they got to have, or their guest has already sent them, 15 questions that need to be asked, that there's very little open conversation that's out there. And it's always been my belief that without that open conversation, you don't get below the surface with
gotcha.
anybody, So I love hearing you say that. I mean, that hits me deep down here, because I think that's, to me, such a core value of podcasting, is getting to the story. And I got to tell you, man, you do a really good job of letting people talk. I mean, you
Yeah,
don't jump in and cut them off. You do a really good job of listening.
yeah. I try to do that because I realize, a lot of times, in life, you know, people struggle with that the most is just having somebody listen to them. Because most people listen to respond, not listen to understand. That's how most people wind up in arguments in most relationships, because people look for words that will trigger them. And I think for me, learning how to balance that by being able to listen to people, it helps me with being able to balance out my own emotion, because now I'm able to hear people all the way through versus hearing the word and being triggered by the word, right?
Mm.
So, being able to allow people to just say and talk, and then be able to elaborate on what the talking point is. And I think for me, that's why it's always good to allow them to go, because sometimes you cut people off at a point where they was about to tell you something that you will have no idea. Like, for example, if I'd have cut my last guest off in between certain questions because it was so shocking, like the things that he was saying, he'd been molested since he was 7 months old. Like any of the things that he was saying was worthy enough for me to just jump in and be like, wait, hold on for a second. Let's hold on before you go any further. But if I would have done that, he probably would have never got to the story about the getaways, right? The so-called camping getaways with the group of the grown men that bring their children to be swapped out. He would have probably never got to that if I kept hanging on to certain details, right? So that's why I say sometimes if you just let people talk and then you'll be able to just gather what you may want to ask them in between their breaths, then that'll give you a better conversation to have, because sometimes you don't really know what questions to ask. Because I wasn't expecting him to come and say something like that. Like, listen, I've been suppressing sexual trauma since I was 7 months old. Who remembers anything from 7 months old?
Exactly.
Right? But just to
Yeah.
know that that's what's been happening to you. So no, I you have to allow people to get that off. I had a lady on who was talking to me from her actual hospital bed. She had a massive stroke, right? And her whole message was overcoming. Her whole message was about, believing in yourself no matter what the circumstances is. Her whole message was she lost her child to heart disease as well too, right? So you got to kind of think about it. These people, they deal with stuff on a day-to-day basis, and at this particular point, people are tired of hearing their story. That's the closest to them because they know it so well. So they hold stuff in.
Yeah.
Then they run across me and they're like, hey, I would like to tell my story. And I check it out. I'm like, all right, bet, come on. And then they get in here and they give it all.
Right.
So I feel like it's a blessing in a way for me to be able to allow people to speak like that, you know?
I agree with you. And it's funny. Not funny, haha, but strange, I guess, how very often when people are on podcasting, and I have this happen a lot, on my shows, where they feel like there's someone who hasn't been there for every step of the way. They're not tired of hearing their story. They haven't been involved, with all of the pain that's gone along. So now they can really tell it. And when they start really telling it again, they get even deeper.
Yeah,
And that's amazing that you brought that up too, because the family members, even though they try to be there, for these folks, the family members are the ones who also are going through every minute of the pain with them, and sometimes they can't talk to those folks.
that's a
Yeah,
fact.
yeah,
And you realize that too, because everybody grieves differently. Um, we have this thing where we like to feel like there's a level of importance depending on who the people are. Like we'll have it where, there's a mother and father who may have lost a child, and they feel like the uncle and aunt don't feel the same way they do because it wasn't their actual child. When in reality, the uncle and aunt loved your child just as much as you do and would be ready to take your child on if you were not to be here anymore. But then you have this thing where people feel like, it's only them. And that's the great thing about my platform is that it gives people the opportunity to say, yo, it's not just me, right? Because men ain't gonna talk about being sexually assaulted by another man. That's that thing that they hold inside because it's the battle in their mind that they deal with each and every day, whether they try to escape it or whether they accept the lifestyle that come along with it. But then you have those that have been on my platform who have this dream of just being a writer, but they've been diagnosed with a learning disability since they've been 4 years old. They hadn't been able to really spell their name out like in legible English, and they're 40 years old right now, but they've been able to write books and write editorials and teach other children and stuff like that just by tapping on their phone and being able to write their story through tapping on their phone with two fingers, right? So I had that lady on. And like, let's think about it. Like, how often do you get people who come on the show and they say, "Hey, I had a learning disability, but I have a college degree." And all the people in my college class kept saying that I had it easy, and they were just pushing me through because I had a disability. We're not noticing that in spite of her disability, she still came and stood in front of people, knowing that they could say certain things like that, and she still went along with it. See, just people didn't see that from that end. Glass empty, glass half full. You know what I mean? So for her, the people that was in her class, yeah, she pretty much got pushed through. Let's be honest. She had a learning disability, but she had the audacity to keep going.
How dare she, right?
Right. And then there's so many people who don't have a learning disability who cannot read, who don't have the audacity to keep going. They are not handicapped and they won't go do it. So imagine if a person is dealing with something that other people say is a disadvantage and they still are at an advantage. It kind of make you look at yourself like, yo, what am I stressing over? What, Bill? Who don't like me? What dream is too big? There's nothing that you can say. That's why my platform is there. Because at the end of the day, if I had to become a niche platform, I wouldn't be able to get all these stories of people saying, "Oh, yo, listen, you ain't the only one." Now, when a person come to me that's just fully healthy and everything is going on with them, and they not excelling in life, I know, okay, yeah, I can't even give you this opportunity to have a conversation with you because I just talked to a lady 3 weeks ago who can't even spell her name all the way out, and she got books and all these other things out because she can't spell it as far as writing, but she could type it. But she took the advantage to do whatever she could to make sure she got done. She cannot drive, right? Because she has this thing where her motor skills are off. She think one thing, her body goes the other way. She can't drive. She relies on people, so she moves into the city so she don't have to worry people so much so she can use public transportation. These are things that people do that really, that just look at their situation and say, how dare I sit here and be a victim? How
Amen.
could you not
Wow.
be a champion for these people, right? And give them a platform to speak. They ain't famous. They got 500 likes, 500 people on their page. That's it. And they not famous. But think about that story. That story is real. A million people need to hear her story.
Absolutely. I love that this conversation took that turn because, for a minute, I started to worry that maybe I was giving the listeners the wrong idea, about your podcast because we were talking about some very heavy stuff, at the very beginning.
Right.
For people who are on the audio version only and can't see you right now, you actually have a sign behind you that says "Good Vibes Only." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so people need to know that. And I want to point out because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't. Everything I've ever heard you do, no matter how deep the story is, no matter how rough it might be, no matter how rough the origins are of the story, you are a very positive guy, and you are always, showcasing the upside. You bring energy to it, and I mean, you're teaching lessons. You're telling people, hey, it's all going to be okay. You can really do this. I love that you bring that.
Right, right, right. I think it's always good to be service to other people. Most people get into the podcast game because they see it's a way of financial gain, because it really is, depending on how consistent you be. And if you stick with it, you can develop an audience. You can pretty much make a living off of being in a podcaster. But, what is your goal behind what you do? I think with anything, like, what's your why? See, my why is not to make money off of the platform. Now, will the platform make money? Of course. We speak all out into existence. Why wouldn't we? Right? But the goal of it is not to do that. The goal of it is to actually have quality content that allows people to be able to, share a story. It's a conversation, is what I have, right? So for me, it's more quality in the work. I go live once a week, and I go live for the authenticity, right? Because what I feel like is that if I mess up, I mess up. But that's what we want people to know. This is a world of, you're going to fumble over some words sometimes. You may not say everything correctly, but you got to say it from a place of genuine, that you have a genuine place in your heart that you come from. So that's why I feel like always being able to motivate the guests is the one important thing. Because if a lady could get up and talk to me in her bed laying down, right? And she could
Yeah.
talking with so much positivity. Who am I to sit up here and act like, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. The way you laid up in that bed, it don't look like I can't go there. Right?
Right,
Because
right.
you
Yeah.
got to think about how many people right now are suffering about things that it look like it's bad right in front of them right now. But they don't know that that's only a setup for you to be great. Most people don't understand that about their life. They look at the things that go wrong as if it's not meant for their good. It's just the way you look at things. And I feel like that's the energy that everybody needs because I don't want her to get off an interview with me. What if I'm her last interview? Right, and then
Yeah.
her family is looking for stuff, and here I am, I'm tagging her, and her family is seeing stuff, and now they see that she was so positive, she was so da 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 da. They could use this as motivation for everybody else in their family because we talked about generational curses, right?
Mm.
So at the end of the day, I think that's the main thing is all hosts of because we go through our own thing. We human, right? We got
Right.
things that tear us down every day, but consistently we got to be available for other people. And I think in life, when you have service to other people, then the universe rewards you with that. I don't know. That's just the way I feel. I feel like what you put out is what you get back.
It's a sound belief. I mean, I think a lot of us believe the same thing. The idea of, I, I mean, you're literally running the podcast yourself. I love talking to professionals, you know. When I'm talking to folks who don't know how to podcast or who have never done it, I always have to bring everybody back to like, the points and, follow the path. And brother, you're just like right where you're going. And I'm just sitting here, I'm along for the ride right now, just smiling, because it's so great. But that is such a big thing that especially new podcasters seem to miss. And it's something that I harp on all the time. But um, if you can talk a little more about that, when you get into podcasting, if you get in it for the money and that's why you're here, you're not going to make it 20 episodes. But if you're here to serve, you've got something, you got a shot.
Yeah, you can make it because it's all about um, what you're looking forward to, right? Because I'm coming up on my 95th show tomorrow, right? 95th.
Congrats. That's awesome.
And I'm looking at that as a consistency because like I said, I go live once a week and that's a consistency that you have to set aside in your mind that I'm going to do this because it's in service of other people. It's never a thing where you get up here and you just talk about yourself. There are plenty of podcasts that do that, right? They talk about themselves and then they bring on their people that talk about themselves. We know that. It's a bunch of that going on, right? But if your goal is to monetize, if your goal is to make money off of your platform, then you have to look at your platform. You cannot look at the money. You cannot just be a person that does thing off of ego, right? Because you can pay to have people look at your stuff. You can have the fake views. You can do all these things that you want, but it's all going to be ego. That's
Right.
all it is. It's not what it's going to take for you to have longevity. And that's with anything in life. Like if you take the shortcut, you'll get there quicker, but will you stay there?
Right.
Because the
Absolutely.
person that takes the route, the longest route, they pick up all this other stuff along the way. You skipped all this other stuff. So if you fall off, you have nothing to fall back on. And that's how I feel that when it comes to podcasting platforms, because I do content creation all across. Like, yeah, I do the platform, but I also film make too. Like we do comedy skits, we do short films and stuff, and eventually get into the full length films. And I'm just as dedicated to that as I am to the podcast, right? And on top of that, the music that people hear, that's my music. I play my own music, right? The shirt I got on, I make my own shirt. We got our own gear. You got to put yourself in a position as if you already monetizing.
Right on.
That's
Right
just going to
on.
be the fact.
Right on. Right on. Love it. Now you talked about starting a podcast and a couple of technical questions for you, for anybody who's listening, who's thinking of starting a podcast.
Right.
In my very first interview of this series, a lady named Brandon Lynette, she and I were, sort of joking around about how there are people who want to charge you, thousands and thousands of dollars to teach you how to start a podcast. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And she actually said at one point someone tried to charge her 25 grand
Mm.
to start her podcast. And so I make sure I ask everybody, when you started your podcast, was it real expensive for you? How'd you start? What'd you use to get rolling? You on episode one, what did that picture look like?
Oh man, episode one was me with my laptop camera, and I did order a podcast microphone, but it was one of the ones that USB you just plug it into your laptop.
Hmm?
I did order that, and I just used some regular headphones. And yeah, the clarity wasn't good. That's what I okay. So I'm gonna say this to all my people out there that start: do not run out here and spend a whole bunch of money on the podcast equipment. Like, don't. You got to make sure you get into your groove first, because the your podcast can look amazing. Like, it can look really good, but that's not going to make people come back. It's about the substance in it. Now, there are ways that when you start a podcast, for most people, they go the visual way, right? They go on Facebook, they do Instagram, they do TikTok, they start there. When in actuality, they should do it where they start the video, do the video, but do the audio version as well. Get you a RSS feed, right? So that way you could take your audio version and distribute it to the places where podcasts are done, or audio. So that way you can look at you don't have to worry about the look so much, right? And you can still build and get what you need as far as the asset that you're building. You can still build the asset without worrying about having all the bells and whistles. And then eventually, as your podcast pretend to grow, like continue to grow, as you continue to see how things are going, then you start taking a little bit more change in here, and you put little things in there that you need. But for the most part, having all this fancy equipment is not going to make you a successful podcaster. Your style, your energy, and whatever your niche is what's going to make you what it is. So
Love it.
I would say focus on the podcast, not the look.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. Um, yeah, that's the best advice you can give anybody is just start. Go record something. you know, go record
Start.
something, put it up, and go from there. Nobody's, year four looks like their day one. Just nobody.
Nobody.
So everybody thinks they have to look like Joe Rogan, you know what I mean, the first time out. And it's like, come on.
Right.
So,
Yeah, because you think about it, people. It's always good to have a higher aspiration. A guy like Joe Rogan, it's more like how my podcast is, where he talk about everything. He don't just talk about one thing. He's been considered the conspiracy theory god, but he's had everybody on there, from politicians to scientists to astronauts to whistleblowers to so he has a little bit of everybody on there, comedians and everything else. So you got to kind of think about it. Like, if you are a podcaster and the people that you're watching that inspired you, if you're looking at them as a catalyst, don't look at them for right now. Whatever episode they on, Google episode one.
right. Apples to apples, man. Compare that to episode
Go
one.
to episode one, and
Right.
then you'll be like, wait a minute. Yeah, right. You'll see that he been doing this podcast for almost 13 years. You just started.
Now, I know that you do a really good job of promoting your show too. I mean, as soon
Yeah,
as you and I hooked up and I started following you and everything else, I mean, I honestly I see you all the time now. So I mean, you're promoting the living daylights out of it. What is the most effective thing you do to promote your show? And what have you found was like the biggest waste of your time trying to promote your show?
gotcha. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm dedicated to the podcast as a business, right? So I look at it like that. If McDonald's is known all over the world, and you could go anywhere in the world and people will know what a McDonald's burger is, and they still have commercials out, that means that the rest of us need to market and promote our business every day too.
Amen.
Like, it's just
Right.
certain things. It's just certain things that you cannot, like, you have to dedicate. a certain amount of time a day. Like for me, I post 3 video clips a day. Whether that's the first thing in the morning before I leave to go somewhere, the lunchtime, and then when I get home, and then everything in between is just a thought that come to you. Oh yeah, let me mention this and let me mention that, and then you focus in between. But you have to set yourself up on you have to believe in you. I think that's the hardest thing that people do. It's hard for anybody to believe in yourself because we've been told that it's some type of egotistical pride that comes with that, some type of conceitedness, some type of, you know, chauvinistic that comes with the fact of you being a man. I'm only speaking for men right now. I can't speak for women. I'm speaking for men. That, for you to be assertive and have the idea and the knowledge of knowing where you want to go, people really look at that, look at you, and they judge you based on that. They kind of put you down for that versus them really bigging you up for that you believe in yourself. So you got to be a person that believe in you regardless of what. So this got to be just as much as your business. If you trade time for money for some other company, and you use the excuse that you got bills and family and all these other stuff, if that's your excuse for why you stay in that repetition, you gotta have that same energy for what's your own. Right? Because
Nice.
you can't pass your position at whatever company to your child. But
Right.
see, your business, you can. Right. So when it comes down to it being yours, you don't have the excuse of saying, yo, I can't promote today. Today I'm tired. Today I'm not. When it comes to your health, you don't get to say, as a man, I don't care what your age is, you don't get to walk around and say, hey, I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to walk. I'm not going to keep my physical up. Why? Because, hey, whoever in my life just got to accept me for who I am. So we say, yo, we don't have dad bods. We got father figures.
Right on.
You feel what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
listen, we don't do that. We don't walk through every day. We don't let a week go by that we ain't in somebody's gym or we ain't sweating. These are just things that like as a man, the more you show the consistency of who you are and the dedication for what you believe in, everyone around you should be able to pick up on that energy. And it'll either remove people from you or draw people closer to you.
Nice. Nice. You've talked about that, a lot about being a man and the responsibility and so on. This is a little off the topic, but I'm just curious. Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you single?
Yeah, no, I have children. And I have two younger boys. I have a little one, he's getting ready to turn 2 in October, and I have another kid who's 8.
Nice.
Two boys, right? And so they're my reason why.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay. So whenever I feel like I don't want to do something, then I gotta think about them. I gotta look at them. I gotta mention them to me to say, yo, this is the reason why. Now, on top of that, then I gotta look at myself, right? Because look, long as we do stuff for other people, we really never go and really do it because it's for somebody else. But my reason why is them that gives me the reason to do it for myself. Because if I do it for me, then I'm a blessing for them. So that's what I gotta do. And then on top of that, man, let's be honest. It's a stereotype in my community about fathers and their children, right? And very so often it's just a thing, but they never talk about how many of us take care of children that possibly ain't ours, right? They don't talk about the possibility of the things that you do to just go through just trying to be in your children's lives. So, sacrifices that you have to make in order for you to be successful in life is going to come with sacrifice, right? Because look, I'm gonna be honest. I think every single solitary person is born with a purpose. I don't think nobody is born to just be whatever they feel like they're being at the moment. And
That's
my
big.
children are going to have a purpose. So I cannot allow other people to not allow me to live my purpose. So that's why the motivation is more so of them, but I have to do this for me because this is my purpose.
Yeah, that's big.
You know?
I've been spent, I mean, decades actually, but working with fathers and husbands. and trying to help them find themselves, get better, everything else.
Yeah,
And that's one of my other podcasts. But I can tell. I'm a father of three. They're all grown. I've worked with fathers for decades, without even asking you. Just the stuff coming out of your mouth. You know what I mean? The phrases
right.
you were using, the purpose that you had, and everything. Your conviction that I can feel from here. I'm like, this guy's got kids.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And been a part of them. I have one of the biggest families in my city. Like my grandmother on one end had 12 children, and my grandmother on the other end had 8. Now, can you
Boom.
imagine? And then they all had children, and a lot of them had children with each other. So I have double first cousins. So you gotta in this scenario, we have to think about, they always say that we're a product of our environment. You know, they always say that, your environment shapes your mentality of who you are, what you can believe about yourself. And I want to be honest and say that that is true, because the more things that we're told is nearly not as much as the things that we should be told. So let's say, for example, more people will tell you what you won't be versus what you can be. More people will tell you what you
Hmm.
cannot versus what you can do. Because people can only see past their level of whatever their superpower is. They can't see yours, right? But so that's why there's a such thing. It's so much in that self-belief and self-esteem that we all need to pay attention to, more so than we pay attention to the validation of other people. And if we could figure that out as men, and that's where men could be able to control their emotional state. If they could learn that one particular faculty and hold on to that, right? Hold on to that very thought that you're not here to be perfect. You're here to serve a purpose.
Nice.
Living your purpose, bro.
Nice.
Because the people that's supposed to be there gonna be there, and whoever's not is not. But you gotta live in your purpose. You can't do so much where you're living for other people. The people that are around you are supposed to attract to you. When you're a man and you're supposed to be put in a position of leadership, that means that what you're supposed to lead is supposed to be attracted to you. It's not supposed to be the other way around. You're not supposed to chase what you're supposed to lead, right? I
Nice.
only see in nature, we only see the women chase the food, and we see the male lion protect. The male lion don't chase food, but he eat first.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
I mean, we sometimes we gotta just look at nature, man, and I think nature give us the answer.
I like it. I like it a lot. For those of you who are watching on video, Rasheed froze up a little while ago, but I can still hear you very clear. So I don't know if
Okay.
you want to jiggle something on your end, maybe, but your picture's just frozen.
Yeah,
But
let's
you're
see.
coming through great audio wise. So, I mean, we're going to keep going and keep doing the audio part for sure. But I don't want anybody on, watching on YouTube later on to think, oh, hey, something's wrong with my thing. But because he's still here, so don't leave, folks. He's still here with us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
You know
Um,
how that would go when you're cooking with grease. You know how the energy don't want this to get out, so you know how that go.
that's exactly right. Hey, man, evil always gets in the way of people trying to make a difference. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, they just can't stop it.
no, right on. Hey, let me ask you another question then while we're seeing if this comes back up. I mean, hey, I can hear you great. So the audio version is going to be beautiful. We talked briefly in the pre-show about monetization because I know that anybody who's in podcasting always wants to know about that. Now,
Right.
you had mentioned you have been able to monetize your show, and it is something that you are working on. Do you mind sharing your story about how that's gone and, where were you? Where are you? How's the monetization going?
Okay, so to be completely clear, like when it comes down to the monetization part of my show, it's not necessarily where it's a constant thing because you get to um almost at 100 shows. That's when people really start to believe in you, or the algorithm starts to believe in you, and even companies themselves will start to pay attention to you because they don't want to they don't want to put their money into marketing, promoting stuff to people who are not who gonna be just a flash in the pan. So when it comes down to other companies, what I like to do, and I hope a lot of other podcasters take this into consideration, is I do affiliate marketing,
Hmm.
right?
Nice.
So we pick certain products that go along with our talking points in order for us to be able to do affiliate marketing. So you do affiliate marketing, and then, of course, that's by chance, right? You leave it up to the people, but as long as you continue to be consistent about products that you feel strongly on that offer you a commission, then you find ways to be creative and you market and promote those things, right? You
Beautiful.
don't wait for somebody to come and give you an opportunity that you can create yourself. I always say this: why let somebody pay you $100 when you can make 1,000? Right?
I like that.
Yeah, they could give you that $100 today, but you might not get $100 today. But if you stay consistent, you can start coming out where you might make $1,000 a day. It's just about your mindset, right? So monetization for me have been coming at now. As far as like on different platforms that people are allowed to send you tips, those are just straight organic. I can't ask people to send me no tips or whatever. People find value in the content and they'll tip you, which I've been blessed to be able to get. And on Facebook and on a place called Fanbase. Fanbase has a thing where it's called Love, and it's just like Fanbase had it first, and then Facebook copied them and created the stars. But these platforms will allow people to tip you, and if they feel that, it's just a penny, but as many pennies as they want to give you, it'll add up. So my thing about people who are in the process or in the mindset of wanting to monetize a platform, the thing that I would say to you most in order for you to really refocus on monetizing your platform is just focus on the content, right? Because they have places that you can submit for. Like there's a place called Podcorn, Podcorn,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Where you can go to different companies and you can submit to them and say, hey, I'll read your promo here. I could put it in the middle of my show, the beginning of my show, or I can invite y'all on, and you guys, and they'll go look at your platform. If you don't have a certain amount of downloads, if you're not consistent, they're not going to respond to you,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of companies out there that's just waiting to give you money, but you just got to build up the equity in your platform first. And that's the hardest part for people, right? Is to stay consistent. Stay consistent. Don't worry about the money. Worry about the platform, and then the money will come.
And that's great advice. And that's one of the things that nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear, hey, just do 100 episodes and then everything will start to work out for you. you
No,
know,
no, they don't.
no, they don't want to hear that. They want, okay, I started
No.
one, I put out 2 episodes. How come I can't get an ad buy? Like, you have 8 downloads, you've done 2 episodes, and you want to go get an advertiser. It's not how it works. It's
At
just
all.
not. But
It's not at all.
that's a great ad. That's great advice, and I love the affiliate marketing punch too. I mean, that's a big thing right now, and there's a million ways to do affiliate marketing too, for
Yes.
anybody, no matter what your subject matter is. So that's great advice. That really is, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot. Let me ask you this. We're going to start wrapping up here. I know you got, a life and things you got to do, and I appreciate your time so much, man.
Yeah,
Being
man.
out
I
here
appreciate you.
on the show. I always ask everybody, what they love the most and what they hate the most about podcasting. And hey, he's back. I can see you now. All right.
Yeah.
You came back just in time. All right. Beautiful. Now you've said a lot of things about what you love. So if you've already covered that, hey, you can gloss over that if you want. But what's the best part about podcasting, and what's the thing that just makes you want to throw something out a window?
Gotcha. The best thing about podcasting is the conversation, right? Because you get to talk with people who have interesting stories. And not only that, you get to do a lot of things that helps broaden your own perspective on people, right? Because the way the media is set up right now, everybody's against everybody in some shape, form, or fashion. So when you can find common ground with people, even if you can't necessarily relate to them, but you can show empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, then that helps for you to grow. So that's one of the best parts about podcasting. Now, the worst part about podcasting, I would say the only thing that would be the worst is if you have a guest schedule and then the day of they don't show or they cancel. Now that will be the only part that I don't like, is because I can't do a podcast without a guest. I've done a bunch of them because I have videos to relate to because, you know, it is sparking conversation, and we are a conversation about a podcast for the culture. So there's always things going out there that I can relate to people with videos. Like I've always talked about different things, whether it come to food, whether it come to economy, whether it come to mindset. All of these things are things that I talk about on a regular basis, even with the guests. So I can do a show without them, but I like to kind of be prepared for that show versus me being mentally prepared to have a guest on and they don't show up. That's the only thing about podcasting that I would say that I dislike, but that would be it. And that would be just contingent on whether a guest shows up or not, right? Because I can book right now. I just started booking up to the first week of October. Now there's more people that want to book out, but I don't go that far. Not because it's not people that I can't talk to. It's just that I want to leave it open for those spontaneous shows, right?
Yeah.
That may come out of things because I work with so many different people. Sometimes, you know, I may get a call from like this one of my brothers, my good brother, John Barnett, right? He's a civil rights activist and he travels all over the country. And a lot of the people that he helped at any given time, he could be like, "Hey, Rob, I need you to talk to this person. They need to get their story out." And then boom, I got a date open for them, and I don't have to go through all these changes because, you know, I've talked to so many different people that have national situations that made national news, and I've talked to them, you know, on my platform. And I have to be thankful for that. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't have the huge $1 million, you know, million following and all that other stuff, you know?
Right.
So for them to want to come on and have a conversation with me after checking me out, because they all check me out. So I can't necessarily say I have a bad part. I think for anybody who's doing podcasting, if there is a bad part of podcasting, this ain't gonna be for you.
Right.
If
It's
you
definitely
ever feel like you want to throw something out the window, this ain't for you. You might as well just find another way to be creative because you should never be upset about podcasting because it's service. I
right
don't know
on.
what a person's niche is, but it's serving. Like you are a podcast that interviews other people with podcasts. And I kind of think about that. Most people who have a podcast don't talk to other people with podcasts because they have a podcast, right? So they don't want to help bring eyes and views to another person's podcast. But it's just the opposite, right? You have a person like me. I talk to a person who has a podcast, right? And then I talk to a person who can't read. So there's the thing, you know, there's a
Right.
correlation, right? But then, you know, I would say, like, if you anything that you don't like about podcasting, if it's that much of a headache where you want to throw it out the window, just stop. Just do something else.
Good advice. Good advice. Appreciate that. All right, man. Listen, you've given a ton of good advice, and you've given of yourself. I appreciate your story. I love the way you do things. I mean, you're an
Appreciate
amazing
it.
guy, man. You really are. I'm a better man to have known you. To be honest, I love this, and just getting to know you has been really awesome. I'm sure a lot of people who are going to listen to this are going to feel the same way. So, I got a bunch of other stuff I want to talk to you about after we're done recording.
Okay. Yeah,
Just
definitely, definitely.
getting to know you, it's like, man, this is great. If you want to leave everybody with one thought, whether it's like your best advice or something we didn't cover, leave them with one parting thought for them to take away from this podcast. What would it be?
I guess being that your audience is mainly other podcasters, I would say to um to all the fellow podcasters out there, just believe in yourself, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't watch numbers. Don't get caught up in likes and comments and views and shares. Just stay focused on who you are, the mission for your platform, and just be authentic to who you are. And I think that you'll continue to grow. Now, it may not be as fast as you may like it to grow, but just like a carrot, people don't see it grow. It grow underground. It don't grow on the top. So you got to be one of those people that kind of look at yourself as a carrot in this whole podcasting game. You're growing. It's just that everybody not going to see it the way that you see it, but you know it's growing. You could feel it. A carrot know it's growing.
Nice. Nice. I love it. Thank you for that. I love that. All right, folks, Rasheed Myers. Rasheed, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, ask you a question, follow you, contact you, what's the best way for them to do it? And of course, I'm going to put all this in the show notes, but if they're listening right now and they want to contact you right now on their phone, what's the best way to go?
Okay, bet. Yo, I'm on all social media platforms at the under RAH and the number one under Ra1. If you're on Facebook, you can look me up by my name, Rasheed Myers, and you can be able to find me there. Or you can type in the hashtag RAH and the number one, and that'll get you to me. That'll make it easier. You can go on any social media platform and put that hashtag in, just hashtag RAH and the number one, and you'll get everything that I pretty much do, and that'll also lead you directly to me. Oh, another thing, podcasters, B, B, B. Please be assertive with your hashtags. Okay, make sure that when you posting your content, attach a hashtag to it that's always to you. And the reason why is because we all have different ways that we do things. My podcast is called Sparking Conversation. That's long to type out. But if you just really put in and you guys go by hashtags, it'll help people find you so much quicker. I promise. You won't have to go through a whole bunch of changes for people to find you. So just find me, use the hashtag RAH and the number one, and you'll find me.
That's great. That's great. And I bet people don't even have any idea that that's something they can use right there. That's higher learning for a lot of folks.
It'll help. It'll help. I
Yeah,
promise. It'll help. It'll keep you from. I promise. It'll keep you from people saying, "Oh, I couldn't find." No, whatever, whoever you are, find a hashtag that you're gonna attach to it that's always linked back to you. Whether it's your name, whether it's your nickname, whether it's something that goes back to you that you don't mind giving people, so it can always go back to your content. You want them to find your content first before they find your pictures.
right, right on.
So.
Absolutely love it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Everybody, this has been Rasheed Myers with the Sparking Conversation podcast. Just putting out fantastic advice and giving everybody a whole lot to think about with their own podcast and about their own lives, to be honest. So, one more time, brother, thank you for being on today.
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you for having me on. I definitely appreciate that.
No problem at all. No problem at all. You and I'll be talking again, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Folks, basically, this has been the Podcaster Nation. This is what we do here. We are done by podcasters. We're for podcasters. We're about podcasters. We believe here very strongly that the rising tide raises all ships. So you know what? Jump in, join us. The water is warm. Until next time.